Today's video is brought to you by this Tyrannosaurus Rex. Rawr. Hello everyone, and welcome to our first story on this channel. Today's story is about the tale of a man who works on a boat, which is kept in the ocean. Now this boat is not like every other boat. This one has magic. It has magical powers which make it very special. Now you might be wondering, what kind of magical powers this boat has? Well, let me tell you about them. But first, I have to tell you about the man and who he is, otherwise the rest won't make any sense. You see, the man, he has a name. It's George, or as his neighbors like to refer to him, hey, Mr. George. But for this story's sake, we will just call him George. So George, as you know, lives on the magical boat. That much we've established. But did you also know that he used to be a wizard? Just kidding, that would be silly. But he does walk around with a stick because he's getting old, and he has a sore back. But the kids like to think he's a wizard, but really, he isn't. Now you see, George likes gardening. He likes to plant vegetables and tend to them, and once they grow, he eats them or puts them in a stew. The local butcher gives George some meat in exchange for some vegetables, so they have a pretty good thing going. That's almost all the food groups on the pyramid thing. George also has 3 pet chickens and a duck. He cares deeply for his barnyard friends, and in return, they give him fresh eggs for breakfast, and his duck sometimes sings for him, as it's a magical singing duck. Now that you have the background of George's life, it's time to move on with today's story, titled George and His Magical Tugboat. Chapter 1. George on a Boat. George is out on his magical boat. He is planning to go fishing. He has made sure to pack all the essentials which would be required for a fishing trip, like a fishing rod and some bait. He unravels the rope that's keeping his boat tied to the dock and launches away. He waves back to his barnyard friends who chirp and quack in response. George sighs with satisfaction. He's going to enjoy this trip, he feels. He takes a moment to admire his magical boat. It's an old-style tugboat with a now faded white paint coat. It has glowing red handrails and a big blue chimney where the smoke comes out of. The planks are a crisp oaken pine brown and are in much need of a polish. Unfortunately, George hasn't got much time to clean his boat, because he is busy doing things such as fishing. With the old magical tugboat chugging away, and George standing at the helm, he wouldn't have things any other way. Nothing could spoil this fishing trip, or so he thought. Chapter 2. Something spoils George's fishing trip. A drop of rain lands on George's face, causing him to flinch. He looks up, and sees what looks like a storm on its way, and judging by the angry-looking clouds, it looks like it'll be here any minute now. George quickly springs to action. Putting the magical tugboat into gear, he turns the boat around and heads towards land. Except, which way is land? It doesn't make any sense, he thinks to himself. Only a second ago he could see the mainland, but now he can only see the ocean for miles in every direction. He tries not to panic, and pulls out his trusty compass. He gets his bearing. He knows that home is due west. He quickly turns the boat around again and goes off into that direction. He looks down to check his compass again. It's now telling him that he's going east. George is very confused. He doesn't have much time to dwell on it though, because all of a sudden the storm comes crashing down. Rain pours down. Thunder cracks in the sky. Massive waves pull the boat left and right. This storm is the worst George has ever seen. It's as if Zeus himself found out George had slept with his wife and is saying, "Hey George, you dumb idiot. Don't sleep with my wife. Now I'm going to screw your fishing trip up and stuff." George holds tight onto the wheel, but it's no use. It spins wildly out of control. George falls to the ground and looks up. A big wave is pulling its way over the boat, and all George can do is cover his face and hold onto a banister for dear life as the wave comes crashing down. Chapter 3. A Spooky Encounter?
Do you think he's dead?
Man, do I look like a doctor to you?
Look, he's waking up.
George stirs, rubbing his head. He looks around, struggling to focus on his surroundings. It looks like a cave, and judging by the cold rocks he's lying on, it is in fact a cave. He sits up and looks at the 2 figures standing in front of him. As his eyes start to focus, he realizes that the 2 people standing in front of him are skeletons. Their bones are a pearl white, and their clothes, which look like they came straight out of a 90s hip-hop movie, hang loosely off them. George yells out in fear, "Ah!" "What's the problem with you? It's like you never seen 2 homies hanging out together on an intergalactic plane in another dimension before."
Actually, I think it might be because we don't have any skin.
Oh, hell no, son. You best not be telling me that this bitch be racist towards undead skeleton homies chilling on an intergalactic plane in another dimension.
Nah, man. I think he's just lost. He's probably not from around here.
Oh, well, in that case, hi, my name is Andre. Andre extends his skeletal hand towards George, who reaches out his and shakes it. Andre pulls George off the ground so that he's now standing.
My name is Nandos. Pleased to meet you.
Nando's grabs George's hand and shakes it eagerly.
My guess is you're not from around here, so it'll be our pleasure to help you go back to where you came from.
George smiles, but it's not a lustful smile, just a thankful smile. The new three best friends head off on an adventure. I won't bore you with the details, but it's a good adventure with lots of cool things to do and see. What you would normally expect an adventure with two skeleton dudes and an older guy to be like. Eventually, our adventurers stumble upon the big castle on the beach. It's big and menacing. Looks very evil, as it should, because this is the evil castle of Lord Bargar, the fiercest tyrant in all of the land. Standing at the top of the sand dunes, they can see into the castle, and lo behold, George's magical boat is right in the middle of the courtyard. His way to get home, so close, yet to him seems so far away. Oh, did I not mention? Yeah, that's how George is getting home, so the three adventurers have been looking for his boat.
Let's sneak around the back. There must be some way in,
reasons Nando's. But as our adventurers make their way to the back of the castle, a guard spots them.
We will now hear a quick word from one of our sponsors.
So what made you want to join Saddle Up? I joined Saddle Up to help me find that special someone. It was kind of a spur of the moment decision. I told myself, Jerry, it's time to get off your high horse. You haven't been able to find love on your own. It's time to get some help. It gets lonely in a paddock. I mean, there's other horses around you, but everyone's waiting for each other to make the first move. And I don't want to be single forever. I've been told I'm a good catch. I get along well with others. I'm friendly, and I'm financially stable. 1 month later, Jerry found that special someone. 4 months on, and they've just moved into their first apartment together. So come on, and saddle up. It's time to stop horsing around. Chapter 4. Captured. Back to the story. We are now in the courtyard of Lord Bargar. Our heroes are all tied up, and he laughs menacingly.
Ha ha ha! You fools thought you could come in here and steal this boat that I found from me, Lord Bargar, the fiercest tyrant in all the land?
Our heroes don't reply, as they are also gagged and therefore can't speak.
It was unwise of you to come here. Now you must die.
Lord Bargar raises his sword, and he's just about to bring it down over the head of George when all of a sudden his head explodes, showering our heroes in blood. The magical tugboat has come to life and grown arms and legs, and is laser beaming all of the bad guys, disintegrating and exploding them all. There is a lot of blood and guts all over. Soon, the battle is done, and the magical tugboat comes over to George and his friends and releases them from being tied up.
Wow, that sure is a pimpin' magical tugboat you got there, George, said Andre.
It was nice to meet you, George. You and your magical tugboat are welcome back here any time,
said Nando's. George shakes both of their hands before walking over to his magical tugboat. The magical tugboat leans down to look at George. The magical tugboat puts a muscly hand around George, pulling him close against its hull. Lifting one hand into the air and pointing upwards, the magical tugboat flies off into the sky. George looks down as they fly higher and higher into the sky, eventually losing consciousness. Epilogue. The sunlight streams through George's bedroom window. His eyes open and he sits up in his bed. Rubbing the sleep from his eyes, he stands up and slips on his slippers. He takes his cane and walks to the kitchen. It all must have been a dream, he thinks to himself. He puts the kettle on and looks out through the kitchen window above the sink. It wasn't a dream. There, standing in the middle of the yard, spreading birdseed, is his magical tugboat. The magical tugboat looks up and waves to George, who then waves back and smiles. This time, it's a lustful smile. The end.